Musical Talk, and today we start the programme with a song from Sue Casson's The Happy Prince.
Nothing exists, no world outside. What he said last night, how I feel inside. Bad news, so what? I'm just thinking of him and whether or not he loves me not. He cares not. Day to day he blows cold to hot, and I love him a lot. Want to read the latest doom and gloom around the world today. Read the headlines. Julian loves me. Standard. All the huge reviews are dark. Unhappy day, famine, war and crime. Special supplement today. Who cares about rotten old news? I'm glad. Julian loves me. He loves me not. He cares not. Day to day he blows cold to hot, and I love him. Oh yes, I love him. Oh yes, I love him. Oh. He loves me not. He cares not. Day to day he blows cold to hot, yet I love him, yeah, I love him a lot.
Leaf after leaf of the fine gold the swallow picked off, till the happy prince was quite dull and grey. Leaf after leaf of the fine gold he brought to the poor, and the children's faces grew rosier, and they laughed and played games in the street.
He loves me not. He cares not. Day to day he blows cold to hot, and I love him. I love him a lot.
Hello and welcome to Musical Talk. I'm Thos Ribbits, the one they call the one and only Thos Ribbits, but inaccurately because my father has the same name. Well, welcome to this latest edition of Musical Talk. The nights are drawing in and it's heading towards Christmas for me, and therefore I suspect for you as well. And of course it's this time of year when people start thinking about pantomimes and family shows. Last week we were talking about The Snow Spider, which I was lucky enough to actually see at the Oval House Theatre in Kennington before it closed, and it was marvellous. But don't despair if you miss that, for in London we have another family show of great intelligence, warmth and, interestingly, intellectual ability and standards. It's Sue Casson's adaptation of The Happy Prince, which is a morality story by Oscar Wilde. An adaptation which, I think, speaks both to children and adults in the truest and best way of intelligent musical theatre. It's coming to the Bridewell Theatre in London's Blackfriars region, and it's the 20th anniversary production, fresh from a successful run at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, where, although I didn't get to see it, I did get to see some of the songs performed in a live cabaret, and I was immediately enchanted, so much so that I wanted to track down the musical and speak to the composer. And so in today's programme, that's exactly what you're going to get. Because Sue Casson, who wrote both the lyrics and the music, is the highly acclaimed musical adapter of The Happy Prince by Oscar Wilde, and captures all the poignancy and the charm of the original short story. In case you don't know, it's a tale of a gilded statue prince who, with the help of a migrating swallow, selflessly relieves the hardship of the people in the town where his statue is. And whilst it's a children's story, almost a fable, it's also a modern exploration of philanthropy, love, loss, and the emptiness of wealth. And so much more than that. In this conversation with Sue, you'll hear about the two iterations of the show, how the show was originally developed and how it's been redeveloped for the 21st century, and a fascinating discussion on innocence lost, on Englishness in music, on Sue's own career elsewhere, and this show's unusual meta-theatrical approach, which is to take you out of a story at certain points to explain how the story has come about in a theatrical way. It's really remarkable. So was the conversation I had with Sue Casson, and she's also very kindly said that we can play some of the songs from the new recording. And so to take you into this interview, let's hear from Sue herself on one of those recordings from The Happy Prince.
Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play a story from the pen of a very master of storytellers. The Happy Prince by Oscar Wilde.
A simple tale of sacrifice. Watch as the magical powers unfold, reveal how riches exact a price, transforming wealth to a heart of gold. One word and a wave, and the world will spin so fast 1,000 years can pass like lightning. Encore? If I'm feeling brave, I can change from prince to pauper, stirring from my torpor to transform a place. There's more. With my aid, the lovely Pandora forever at hand. There's a perfect team to create the greatest magic in the land. Take a bow, Pandora. I wave my magic wand, and at once a rural scene is set. Contain your cheers just yet. A forest glade, a pretty little pond, and amongst the rubber weed a live and lovely reed played by our slender maid. Beautiful, she sings like an angel, but speaks not a word. With all in place, all we need is the arrival of the bird. And action.
Musical talk. Sue, thank you so much for agreeing to speak to me. And if I may say, I've sort of admired you from afar for a while.
Delightful.
I didn't get to see The Happy Prince, which is the show we're going to be talking about today in Edinburgh, but I sort of did, because some of the songs were performed in a cabaret, a free cabaret, which I went along to. And they were so impressive that I was impelled to find them on a CD later on, and then to write to you, and you very kindly said, yes, you'd like to speak to me. So I've been dying to have this conversation for some time.
Thank you very much.
But The Happy Prince is in the happy situation of celebrating its 20th year.
Yes.
So tell us a little more about how The Happy Prince came to be in the first place.
In the first place, we wrote a very sparse version of the show for the Buxton Festival in 1992, which is 20 years ago. And it was a response, really, to the first musical I wrote was called Two Tigers and was entered for the Vivian Ellis Prize. And it was, by Fringe standards, we produced it at the Edinburgh Fringe, having been a finalist in the Vivian Ellis Prize, quite a blockbuster in terms of cast. We had a cast of 8 and a band of 4, so there's a whole company of 12, plus all our team, to operate the show. And when it came to thinking what were we going to do next, we were obviously thinking of something that was going to be more cut down. And my husband, Tom Blackmore, who's produced this production, came up with the idea of The Happy Prince, which was a story that he'd loved as a child.
It's the Oscar Wilde sort of fable, isn't it?
It is, and it's only like 5 pages. So I thought, well, that was going to be quite a challenge to spin that out into a full-length musical. But it was quite a good discipline as well, and because Oscar Wilde is such a poetic writer, there was plenty of room lyrically to expand what he had written and to base a lot of the lyrics on what he had written in the first place. So that was the challenge that was set me, and that was the Buxton show, really. And after we'd done the Buxton show, which was pretty much the story. We decided to frame it and to give it a theatrical context, which had been hinted at in the Buxton show but hadn't been fully developed.
Oh, right, go on.
Which is how the Song Tricks of the Trade came about, because we then put a bigger storytelling framework around the story to show how the story was being told as it was told.
I think it's worth clarifying this, isn't it? Because the show has had, if you like, 2 genuine incarnations in its 20 years. And it's always had this, if you like, wraparound meta-theatre story.
Yes.
As well as the fable itself by Oscar Wilde. And
Yes.
it is that extra element which I think really makes it stand out as a remarkable piece, as far as I can see. Certainly it
Thank you
sounds
very
remarkable.
much.
And it's fascinating. It's intriguing, I think. So, but the wraparound story has been different in the first section to the second. So as you're saying, this first one, it's more about the actors who are performing it and stepping in and out of the story in a way. Could you elaborate a little more on that?
In its present incarnation?
Well, no, in the first.
In
so
the
that
first
then we can go on to why.
In the first incarnation, we all entered. We were doing this in a tent called the Fringe on the Green, and we had 4 so-called spirits of the theatre who came in sort of theatre rags, sort of leotardy things, and gradually took on the mantles of the bird and the prince.
Who are the 2 principal
actors. And then chorus, which was a joke, because we thought we're not having a cast of thousands in a dancing chorus line, we're just having one chap. So chorus then told the story, and he had an assistant called Pandora who made it all happen. So that was the framework.
But he is a chorus, by the way, isn't he? Because he plays lots of different characters.
He
That's
does,
his
yes.
chorus-like nature.
And he sort of and he frames the story. He tells the story, and in the present version, he reads more and more of the original Oscar Wilde story. And I'm calling him he, but it's me this time round.
Yes.
Because I have now relinquished the mantle of being the assistant and taken on the role of chorus.
Promoted from Pandora.
Yes.
So it's actors in the original, but in its newer version, let's talk about the wraparound story in that. It's actually much more intimate, isn't it? Because it's about, well, so much of the story is about innocence and the loss of innocence, but rather more interestingly, the regret of having innocence, because it holds you back from being able to deal with the world in which we find it. And that, I think, and I'm sure you want to talk more about this, is so much about your own family circumstances. You're married to the producer-director.
Yes.
And in the current version, your own children are the other actors.
Yes.
So, it's a good family concern and it's a good family show.
Yes.
But am I right in thinking that it's been inspired so very much by watching your children grow?
It's been watching them grow as performers, I think, probably, and their desperation to be able to perform. And they're both fabulous singers. And so that was part of it. It was also very much a show of its time. When we originally updated it from the Buxton version to the show that then subsequently opened at the old fire station and went on tour nationwide, it was a product of its time in the sense that it made more of the actors. So the opening framework sent up their aspirations when they walked into the audition room, and the Prince was the rock tenor who thought he was going to steal the show, and the Swallow was very timid and, can I do this? Oh, I don't know if I can. So it was much more about how those actory people came and did it, and that probably wouldn't translate now, I think.
Well, I'm glad you say that, because I will just make an observation, and I made it this very summer, because I went to see quite a lot of shows at the Fringe this year, and that conceit, which beautiful and fresh 20 years ago, is almost massively overused, I have to say. I went to see so many shows where, in my view, the authors hadn't been quite brave enough with the material they provided, and they had to create all these kind of actorly relationships going on underneath.
Yes.
So these days, that can be a bit much. So I'm really pleased to say that, that this was a show of its time, but now it's a show of its new time.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, you looked at it, when you brushed it down again, I mean, we're possibly jumping the gun here in terms of its history, but when you brushed it down again for its 20th, did you immediately say, we really need to do something with this?
To start with, we had to lose 50 minutes of it, because when it went out on tour, it was a 2-side show, so we had 45 minutes before the interval and another 50 after. And for Edinburgh, the constraints were that we had to do a 50-minute show.
Because it's an hour booking, 5 minutes in, a 50-minute show, 5 minutes out.
That's it. So that was a big constraint. So I suppose when we were cutting it down, we were ruthless about using the very best songs and cramming them all in. Something we'd been doing to develop the show, sort of prior to this in the last 2 or 3 years, was to go to churches with Lily and Robert, and doing it as a sort of recital piece. We had a sort of drop-in Prince who'd sing the Prince, and then they would sing their parts. So we had a good idea of what went down well with those audiences.
So you had workshopped it, as it were, right?
We had, and what we'd done really was what we like to call, because we started off in Sevenoaks actually, and did a sort of half-an-hour presentation of what we called a sung-through overture. And that was really just what we thought were the real stonkingly good songs, not really even with a story. We kind of hoped that people knew the story enough to be able to just follow the thing through, and just linked all the songs together so that there was no stop between them, and it was a 30-minute.
This will, if you were doing Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Doodah, this would be called the Mega Mix at the end.
That's it, yes. That's the Mega Mix. Yes, so I suppose we built on the Mega Mix. And
in a church environment.
In a church environment.
I admire your pushing the boundaries, if I may say that. and that went down well. I mean, forgive me, that must be very flattering for you as well, because you're the lyricist and the composer. And to, if you like, strip it down to the pure score.
Yes.
And have that well received. I imagine that's pleasing.
Very, very pleasing. Very pleasing.
And did it highlight any surprises for you? Because, putting it out there is where you get your work judged rather by anyone other than you, really.
Yes. I mean, to go back to the churches, it's a very suitable story for the church environment.
It's a good morality story.
It's a very moral tale, really, of giving gold to the poor. So I think that made people receive it well, because they appreciated, the sentiment behind it. I knew there were good tunes in it. I suppose...
I concur, by the way.
The thing is to pare them down so that there's no chaff, I suppose. Because when you've got a long show, one might be guilty of putting an extra verse in to have a dance routine or, a lovely lighting effect, which you're also certainly not going to get in a 5-minute sort of changeover.
Quite.
So everything that went into the production in Edinburgh was purely telling the story and.
So you reduced it down to its narrative in a sense.
Yeah, which is why we brought back more Oscar Wilde. Made it more of a storytelling exercise and less of a theatre spirits exercise. So although that is the mesh that binds it, it's all not very in your face, it's not very overt, it's all quite suggestive and, dependent on the audience members picking it up, really.
So seamless enough not to feel like a bolt-on. It's actually integrated these extra elements.
Absolutely. They're all underscored. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much sung through.
I'm really interested in this idea of different focuses, because, as you say, the first version, longer, more speech marks, theatrical, with more opportunity to do that, and you have the focus on actors performing their part and being themselves, and the difference and the disparity, if you like, between that. But as you have boiled it down to the narrative, which is a requirement for your new format, if you like, because you've had to focus on. If you're focusing on the narrative, then what better than to talk about story writing as a concept? I think I like the way you sort of cut your cloth.
Yes. To
match your requirements. So presumably, if it's ever turned into a feature film, you have to find a new angle on which to sort of latch on the extra elements, if you like. But it's these, am I right in thinking, that sort of make it a proper family show rather than a children's show?
Yes.
Because it does explore some interesting themes, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, there are some very probing themes, really, about sacrifice and about expectation and where that gets left. And in the opening, when we bring out the performers for the first time, they explore their expectations, which then very quickly get absorbed into the story itself.
So the parallels integrate.
Yes, yeah. I mean, in a very oblique way. Yeah. I mean, it's not it just sort of sets up the idea of expectation and growth, I suppose, and then you see a story and then you draw your own conclusion, or at least I hope that's what happens. I hope it's not too didactic. It's not meant to be didactic.
I know. I've touched on this already now. You just said growth there now, because I think so much of this is terminology. In fact, so many of the lyrics are about terminology. I mean, just briefly, there's one where the narrator character, the chorus character, is having a good old discussion about what he should be called.
Yes.
Whether he is the chorus or she should be called,
Yes,
depending on gender.
Yes.
Facilitator, moderator, there's...
Yes.
So terminology there, but the thing that struck me absolutely profoundly was I'm jumping around a bit here. The essential story, without going through the narrative drive, is that you have a gold-encrusted, jewel-encrusted statue, the Happy Prince, who's in fact very unhappy because he sees his former subject, shall we say, in a state of unhappiness beneath him, and he didn't do anything when he was a young man, a prince, because he didn't know that he was privileged at that time, because he didn't reach maturity.
No.
And so for him, he regrets innocence. Now, this is such an unusual concept. But of course, the opposite of regretting innocence, people often talk about the loss of innocence. But actually, to lose one's innocence is to get growth. And you've just used the term growth. And
yes.
I find this whole movement back and forth. If someone said this show is about the will or the pleasure in losing one's innocence, that almost sounds salacious. So it's not that. But it is about personal growth that comes from leaving a state which, unfortunately, is, innocence is a limited state. It has parameters, and we all have to beat down whatever parameters we have in our life to move forward.
Yes.
How did you come to that? I mean, obviously some of that's in the narrative.
Yes.
You've underscored it with learning to write songs and moving on from the state of childhood and youth. And you talk about, in the press papers, children usurping their parents, or that desire at least to be grown up, which we all do have when we're children.
Yes. I mean, in the initial show, there was definitely a desire from Pandora to usurp Chorus and to learn his skills in order that she could practice herself. And really, I think that within the transition from childhood to adulthood, that is a natural state of things.
It is a driving force.
It is a driving force. It's not a comfortable one as a parent, actually, but it is something that is very natural. That by learning, by assuming skills, then you do try and take your place in the world, which may very likely be beyond your parents' place.
Well, that's both the hope and the fear, isn't it, in a strange way?
Yes, I know.
It's very interesting, and that, I think, is infused all the way through the piece, or so it seems to me. Because the characters, both in terms of the story, find their way forward, and then as you say, you have the sort of the meta-theatre, which is the characters who are putting on the play. In this case, not the actors, but they are the actors, obviously. But the other characters are learning to write, and the art of telling a story.
Yes.
I think that's such a fabulous idea.
Well, I can't take complete ownership for it because
no,
it's not completely mine, because the thing about Tom is that he sees in very broad brushstrokes. I'm very sort of very much I'm the lyricist who thinks in terms of I need to get from A to B. I have to write these words to this tune to get from that moment to that moment.
The navigator of the plot.
Well, the navigator of the plot is really the structuralist, and that would be Tom sitting there saying, well, we need this opening, it needs to go to here, and then, this has to happen. So he really sets out the building blocks.
Nexus points.
Yes, exactly.
And then you're the GPS that links them all.
I think, maybe.
We've sort of been talking about the fact the show has had these two stages. So, because let's go back to its original stage, because it was very well received, wasn't it?
It was.
I mean, it did well at Edinburgh.
Well, it didn't go to Edinburgh. It's never been. Well, this time it's been to Edinburgh, but the show before had not been to Edinburgh.
Oh, I misunderstood that.
No, it started in Buxton. It went to Bristol and grew again. And then it opened at the old fire station. At the time when the old fire station was really...
This is Oxford.
Yes, quite a powerhouse. I mean, they'd had Moby Dick there, and Daisy Pulls It Off, I think, before that went in.
Very similar shows in some sense. There's a lot of schoolgirls in there, aren't there?
So it was a good place to do that, and that was eye-catching. We got a great Financial Times review, which kind of really set us off on our way there. And following that, we had a nationwide tour that went on for the best part of a year, really, sort of to little venues up and down the country,
including London's Bridewell Theatre.
And that's where it finished. That's where it came to rest.
Were you not there at the opening of the Bridewell?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Its inaugural season.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And that was 94, I think.
That's right. Yes. So
you've been on tour.
On tour and then came to rest there, and that was that.
But it wasn't quite, was it? Because you've been to America a couple of times, or the show has.
The show has, yes. We showcased it in America, hoping to get a bit of interest. And in fact,
how was it received?
It was received very well, because somebody very flatteringly said that it was just like a lost cousin of the Fantastics. They having not known who I was, and they said, well, that's who they thought it might be by, which was very flattering.
Yes, that's done tremendously well, the Fantastics in America.
I know.
They love it.
They do.
We've never really been able to make it fly here, have we?
No, we haven't, no.
Including poor old recently with poor old Edward Petherbridge.
Yes. Oh, I haven't forgotten about that, yeah. So yes, we took it out there, and then subsequently I went out doing some cabaret with my cabaret partner, Sue Casson, the Brannick Academy. And while we were there, we went and did an open mic slot with somebody that we met out there who was very well connected with theatrical spheres. And so he introduced us to somebody who said, oh, well, I can't give you a spot at cabaret, but, have you got any shows hidden away up your sleeve?
Well.
And so I said, well, funnily enough, I've got this Happy Prince, that's back on the stocks, So I sent it across to him, and he put it on at the York Theatre. But I didn't get across to see it, so I don't know how it was received there or how it went down there.
But to be done twice in America, once by your own hand and once by somebody else,
yes,
I think that's very, very impressive indeed, if I may say. And of course, it was recorded.
Yes.
On its original run.
Yes, it was.
And that's the original cast.
That's the
no.
Well, it's not actually.
Oh, it's not.
Frustratingly, it's because after Buxton, it was a big time for musicals then, and they were trying to get something.
Hard to believe musicals being popular.
Well, they were really buzzy then, weren't they?
They were.
There was a real big thing
going
on.
And
Dress Circle was just sort of starting up with its
the late Dress Circle, bless them.
And they had representatives there who were anxious to set up a label. And so they came to see the show and said, well, this would be perfect for the label. And so we did a deal, and it was one of the first ones to be done on the Dress Circle label. And we prepared it after the Buxton run, but before the Bristol run. So we have our Bristol Prince on there, who was Johnny Barr.
Who we've interviewed on Musical Talk before.
So I gather. And Mean Ranoir, who was also in Buxton. But we had a different chorus, John Warnaby, who didn't take on the mantle when we went to Bristol or in Oxford, as it turned out, because something else came up. So it's really, it's Mina and I who are the stalwarts from the Oxford production and from Buxton, because Mina saw it through all the way to Oxford, but really, Johnny just did Bristol, he didn't come and do Oxford, and John Warnaby never did it at all.
You never get that from the recording, though. I mean, he does it with such aplomb, if I may say.
Oh, he does.
Yes, absolutely. It sounds like a man relishing the opportunity of being all the characters that chorus offers.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
No, he would.
And they all sound different as well. I mean, they really are. There's a bit of good character acting going on there.
Yes.
His poor man wandering over the cup of tea.
Oh, yes.
Is quite different from his I am your chorus.
Absolutely, yeah. No, he's the greatest chorus we never had.
Well, see, there's a headline, isn't it? But I mean, forgive me, that's remarkable for and I don't mean this patronisingly, but a show that starts as a fringe show, to have been picked up for a recording, been picked up for America, to have done a year's tour, to have come to London, that's a show that's solidly built and interesting, because you wouldn't have been able to carry on that long if it wasn't quite what it seemed, if it was all veneer, shall we say?
No. It was wonderful how people kept turning out to see the show and enjoying the show. I mean, all over the place. People who didn't know us from Adam, though they may have known Oscar Wilde. I think that would have brought people in.
It's a good name to have on the
It is a good
name,
yes. Yeah.
And he's not going to make any changes for you, so that's all right.
Because we did Richmond in the first incarnation. We did the Little Georgian Theatre. And the chap there, his name escapes me for a moment now, was it Bill Sellers, who was running it, said, well, you'll do your one night, and if it goes well, then you'll be packed out for the rest of the run. And if it doesn't, then, it's all really rides on this first night. And that was quite scary.
Yes.
So we did our first night, and we were packed out for the rest of the run. So it was very lucky.
Well, you say luck, but I mean, the luck is in being able to sell an unknown show, isn't it? But
yes.
But you have the goods. Once you've got people in the door, there's no one will shortchange.
No.
And I've got to ask this because, where do you go from that first show? I mean, we'll get on to how it has come to be revived a bit later on. But once you have put it to bed, because it has to finish eventually.
Sure.
You've done your 2 years around the country and over the Atlantic. What did you think? I must write another show? Is that difficult second album, as they say?
Well, I did write something else, actually. But the next thing was really quite different because it was a review about the Thatcher years. Because I did it as a collaboration with Simon Ray, who was the Guardian poet who produced a Saturday poem about whatever was topical that week. And I met Simon at Edinburgh, and there was something about the way he wrote, because although he's a poet and not a lyricist, because his rhyme schemes are often very diverse, they suggest tunes that just kind of works.
They have a natural rhythm
for me, yeah. And so I set a couple of his poems just to show him what I meant. And he liked them, and he said, well, let's have a crack at doing something together. And this was the show that came out of it, and we called it Requiem. And in a rather convoluted way, each movement or part of the Requiem concentrated on a different issue, political issue.
So it was chunked, if you like, to reflect the Thatcher years.
Yes, so the Requiem Aeternam was all about Falklands War, and then the Liber Scriptus was about the tabloid press.
How prescient.
So the In Paradisum was about the ecological problems, and the Recordare was about the AIDS crisis and all.
Right. It really was a sort of social history as well as a political history. Very interesting. Because that would have been, mid-90s?
Yeah.
I was going to say, because the 80s and 90s, there was just so much more sort of political stuff going on, really. Even simple things like the Metropolitan Mikado, which was... Are you aware of this?
No, I wasn't, actually.
There were 2 or 3 Gilbert and Sullivans that were done where they were... Well, the Metropolitan Mikado was essentially a spoof of the GLC under King Livingstone.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, so there was a lot of that kind of stuff. It was obviously early 80s. But,
yes.
Yes, but you just don't see that kind of stuff very much these days. It seems to have died a death, rather. And of course, you have, as you've said already, a cabaret act.
Yes.
Tell us a little more about that, if you don't mind asking. And the website, by the way. So that,
Yes, well, the cabaret act came out of a trio that I was part of at the end of the 80s called Premier Crew. And it was...
very 80s title.
Well, yeah, I know. We had very ritzy little outfits as well. And there was me at the piano, and we had a cellist rather than a double bass player, and a percussionist, Chris Brannick, who is now my partner. We go out together. Sometimes we go out as a foursome, but it's sort of Chris and me and another percussionist and a cellist.
So you and he are the sort of core element of your current incarnation of the group?
Yes.
And you're called English Cabaret, amongst other things, aren't you?
Well, that's really a larger umbrella for the things that... at the moment we have 3 projects, because there's the CD that I've done as a sort of solo CD, The Beachcomber. My husband Tom is at work on a film about Nuremberg.
Which is based on some recently discovered letters.
That's right.
Of the British Prosecutor General, as it were, to his wife, 1946.
That's right, David Maxwell Fyfe. Yes,
who
is actually Tom's grandfather.
Oh, really?
So it's
family.
It's a family odyssey. And he's been, since the letters were discovered, I mean, he began by archiving them and putting them into order, and that in itself was, quite a job, really, because it's not as if the letters, sometimes they overlapped, sometimes, there was one missing, and we didn't think the letters actually still existed because Great Granny was a very, very private person.
A generation who might have destroyed them.
And Tom felt sure that had there been letters, they would be gone. But somehow Maxwell Five had managed to snaffle them away.
Well, he had a lawyer's mentality, I assume.
Well,
you keep the briefs, don't you?
Yes, yeah, and so there they all were. But that's
fascinating social and history document in its own right again.
Yes.
So there's a film coming there.
Yes, a film coming.
Fabulous.
Called Under an English Heaven, which is sort of an odyssey, really, of what he's discovering about his grandfather and about Nuremberg, but also about the context of that Nuremberg and why he, as a Scotsman who was not particularly well connected, came to be so involved in sort of matters of state and ending up as Lord Chancellor.
Yes. Okay, we've had plenty of Scots Lord Chancellors.
Yes, it's true. It's
right
true.
Up and through to the Major years.
Yes.
And indeed beyond.
Yes.
But you've actually mentioned, and now's a good time, I think, to talk about it. Your website's called English Cabaret, and that's cabaret with no A in there, so it's CABRET.
It's actually on the website. I think it's actually Cabaret, CABARET. But for some reason, when I send emails, I lose the A. But
the indefinite article.
Yes.
So we're leaving you only with the definite.
But it should have an A, and it should be CABARET, because it was the logo is kind of like a nod to the German cabaret.
Oh, I see. But you could not be more different, I think.
No.
And this is something I want to pick up. Listening to the score, both live when I heard it in the cabaret performance that was done at the Sea venues in Edinburgh this year at the Fringe, and listening to the recording on the CD, I think there's and it's going to be very difficult to define why, and I probably want to explore that with you. But I think there's an Englishness to the music, not a Britishness. Usually I think of things being British culturally rather than English, Welsh or Scots, but I think music is one of those things you can break down. And this feels a very English piece. I said before we were recording that, you won the Vivian Ellis Music Prize.
I didn't win it, actually. I was just a finalist.
Oh, I do apologise.
No.
I'll carry on talking to you anyway. But Vivian Ellis, of course, also represents a very kind of English songwriting, halfway between Noel Coward and Ivor Novello, I always think, and they're possibly sort of much more in tune with, slightly less in either directions.
Yes.
And possibly, when I say Flanders and Swan, I don't mean in that their kind of cabaret sense, but there's something innately English about it, and the songs come out that way, and I don't quite know why. Do you have a view on that? Do you recognise that in yourself?
I don't know why. I am very English. I don't have any British forebears. My dad was a northerner, my mum came from the Fens, and so I am English through and through.
Well, a Scots husband.
Well, 8th Scots or something.
Oh.
He's got a bit of Irish in there too. But I think it's more that people like Noel Coward, particularly, I loved as I was growing up. I loved the way that he used language, and admired very much actually the way he conducted his showbiz life. The way he just, if there was a flop, he'd just put it behind him and go on.
Sir Rocco, I believe, was one of his early flops. Do you know that one?
I couldn't sing you a song from it.
I think they got booed at the end, so they came on. Ivor Novello was in it, and they just came on and waved at the crowd as though it was a big hit, which
Thank you so much.
brought the blues even louder. You have to have a certain insouciance for that, I think.
So yes, I loved listening to Noel Coward as I was growing up, and one of the things that I did when I first started writing songs was to write topical songs for things like Stop the Week and
you did Pick the Week on the radio, didn't you?
Yes, I was
Pick of the Week.
Pick of the Week, yes, a number of times, and And that in itself was another sort of lyric-led musicality. So I can see that Englishness.
What about the music?
Musically, I don't know, because I tend to write music that I like to listen to. That's all you can do, isn't it, really?
It is. That's why I speak so much. But this is just a stab in the dark, but it's melodic. It's very good with the piano. Because I had the privilege of watching you, because you were playing the piano as well as singing in the cabaret.
Yeah.
And that's when I first noticed it. It also has now this sounds odd, because I'm not a musician. If you're going to press me, I'm a words man rather than a music man myself. But it has a clarity to it. And it's like, if it were a drawing, it will be a fine-lined drawing with lots of detail, rather than a broad brush. Maybe it's because it eschews sentiment, actually. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's that mixture of... I really am sort of exploring this on the hoof with you, in a way. The lyrics are very intelligent, very clever, and they get to the point of what they're talking about. It certainly isn't slushy, it certainly isn't sentimental. You're not going to get a Disney commission. I don't think that's very much to your credit.
I don't know. Some brilliant songs come out of Disney, actually. Sherman Brothers.
I can't knock them. Yeah, although the Sherman Brothers are the most English writing style.
Well, maybe.
And one of them lived in London, of course, all his adult life.
Did he really?
The one who passed away last year.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the brothers didn't get on at all, and so they kept the Atlantic Ocean between them for most of it.
How amazing that you can not get on and still do all of that.
I know. Well, I suppose the money helps.
Nah. Money never helps like that.
Does it not? They say it can't buy you happiness, but you can look for it in a lot of different shops. There's a... So it doesn't have that. So it has a kind of... I'm back to innocence again, actually. Innocence and purity, but it's knowing. It also does have that sort of coward-like quality, which is... the lyrics are splendid. I was marvelling on the way up to forgive me, you don't take prisoners with your lyrics. It's not a children's show, it's a family show, but, pauper and torpor is a good double rhyme, but not even every adult is going to know what torpor is. They might know what a pauper is, because we're all heading that direction these days.
Hurrah!
We can live the dream. Tell me if you think I'm talking absolute nonsense, by the way.
I think one of the reasons for its simplicity is that I haven't ever done a music degree or trained in that way. I did my grade 8 piano, but then I very much doubt whether I could have gone and done it at music college, to be honest. I knew I didn't want to do composition at music college because I thought that people telling me certain things were not right, largely tunes, because people at music colleges don't like tunes at all, I would find very deflating.
Yeah,
so
you don't want everything to be done by stockhouses.
But there is that constant seeking after progress and I like a tune which is old-fashioned, and so there is that
maybe
side
it's not
of it.
Old-fashioned, maybe it's traditional in the truest sense. The folk songs which
Perhaps that's true
timeless,
too.
Actually.
I try when I'm writing to sort of get something that is melodic but is not predictable.
Yeah.
And when it's at its best, then I think I manage to do that.
I don't think your music, from what I've heard, is not trapped in time at all. It sort of transcends that, I think. So it's not a joke.
No, it's lovely. No, it is lovely.
Thank you. Well, it's you done all the work, in fairness. I'm just describing it. But I think that's its great strength, because, I know what you mean, because friends of mine have gone to, they've done musical writing courses and things like this, and everybody's trying to sound like Jason Robert Brown,
yes.
Which is lovely, if you want everybody to sound like Jason Robert Brown, but I don't. So,
no. I do love Stephen Sondheim.
Well, but Stephen Sondheim, in a strange way, is so not in keeping with the American song. They'll lynch me for this, but he's sort of he's a sideline almost. He's carved a path of his own, and people have walked down it. But there will be no Sondheim when he goes afterwards. Do you not think?
He's very particular.
Yeah, that's a much better way of putting it, rather than my long-winded travel.
No, he is very particular and very unique in what he does.
So can I ask you, let's take your influences backwards then. Who are your You know, you write what you write and what you enjoy and
Yes.
what you have within you. And you mentioned Coward as a lyricist. What about Coward as a musician, a composer? Or and where else? Where are your historic milestones?
Well, then, historically, I very much admire Impressionists because I love Debussy
Right.
and that sort of shimmery writing, which I often,
Yes.
do use.
To great effect, actually.
Because one of the ways about the way I write is that I'll sit at a piano, which is very old-fashioned in itself, but then the third voice will be mine, so that I can set up what the piano is doing and sing the extra bit over the top, but I don't play that bit. And so that gives you, sort of a bit more leeway
I like that.
of places to go.
And are you doing? Have you got because you said you'd already plotted out the arc of the song, perhaps. Are you already improvising lyrics as you do that, or are you finding a melody first, or do you do it at one?
Quite often, the lyric and the tune will come at once.
They fuse.
You then have to develop the lyric to make it tell the story that you want it to tell. But you probably know what the story is that you want to tell when you're doing it.
So there are different imperatives to drive the development of the song as you go. Sometimes so you fuse them together, but sometimes the lyric says, well, now we've got to go to this bit, but the music might demand you to do that, presumably, as well.
I don't know, because they go. One of the delights about writing very often on your own, or even when I write with Simon, and Simon is so very unhands-on. He kind of hands me something and says, well, sort of do what you will with it, which is absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
Because then you can make it fit what you think it should fit. One of the delightful things about not having somebody who's saying, this is my tune and you must do this and it must have this number of syllables, is that you can jig it around to do what you want it to do, and therefore you don't have to be led by either the lyric or the music.
So you're free to do what is best,
Exactly.
presumably, for each piece.
Exactly.
Well, I like that, because that's you're beyond the format almost. You're able to be flexible and appropriate.
Yes, yeah. Yes, because I haven't. I'm a great admirer of Tim Rice, and I went along to an evening.
Hence for Disney, yes.
when he was speaking, and he said, the thing about composers is they've written all their tunes by the time they're 25 or so, and they just keep getting them out and dusting them down. But that isn't true for what I do, because I don't think I've ever sort of taken a tune that was in the bottom drawer and then put something with it, because it doesn't really work like that. Each time I'm trying to think of a idea that I'm trying to express as a lyric, then the music will come to express that, because it is the emotional reinforcement of what you're trying to say.
So you always have twins, essentially.
If you like to put it like that.
Did you write any new... Because let's talk then about how the Happy Prince came back, because it's in its 20th year.
Yeah.
It's just been to Edinburgh. But when did you think, actually, it is time to bring the Happy Prince back to life?
Well, it's always been there in the background, with the things going on in America. It never really went to sleep. And for several years, we used to do Christmas cabarets at Chiddingstone Castle. And on one of those occasions, we dusted down 2 or 3 songs, I think, for a sort of extended piece in the middle of the cabaret. And thought then, still stands up all right, it's fine. So it hadn't really ever gone away. And, if there was a catalyst, it was, we had a video recording of the Bridewell show, which the children used to look at when they were young. And when my son Robert was going to go to Poland, they told him he had to raise £100 himself in order to buy his ticket. And
a charity version?
We sort of sat down and said, well, what can we do, that will do that? So we thought, we'll do a little sing-through of some songs from The Happy Prince, which we did. And he loved to sing them. And so from that, the whole thing grew.
Bloomed and blossomed.
Yes.
So how long ago was that, if you don't mind asking?
That was probably about 3 or 4 years ago now.
Which sort of lit the blue touch paper, if you like.
Yeah.
And, so when did you think, well, it's time to actually produce it? Because, was Edinburgh its first... Had you done any shows prior?
Not in this incarnation, no. We got it ready for Edinburgh.
So you got it out, sang the songs. Have you written any new songs for this, or merely trimmed it old?
We've put a new writer's song in, because it was... the writer's song is on there, and it's very much a kind of musical set piece.
Sorry, when you say on there, you're meaning it's on the original
CD,
on the original
CD.
20 years, yeah.
Sorry, I forget it's not official.
Give it a few years.
But when I wrote that 20 years ago, there were still things on TV like The Good Old Days and
musical nights.
Exactly,
yes.
And I think that whole thing probably wouldn't read now in the same way. Also, we were looking for something that was less extended. That was a terribly long sequence in the original show, which gave some light relief in amongst all the poverty and, general sacrifice going on, which was, very good for a full-length show.
Necessary for the ups and downs of the plot.
Exactly.
Emotional.
Whereas this time, what we've done is to actually absorb the writer into the crowd scene, so that you first see the writer in the crowd trying to seek inspiration, and then later you see that she's not done it and is left sitting in her garret, which prunes it down enormously. But also, sort of hastens the plot along a bit, because when you've only got 50 minutes, you have to be pretty swift.
And the first song is the one about how a writer needs a muse.
That's right, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
Whereas
that's all gone.
The new song
Yeah.
is, am I right in thinking this is the song that I love so much? There's a song where a younger character, or so it seems to me from the song, is asking for how does one write?
No, because that was in the original.
That's an original one, but not on the recording.
Well, actually, I say it was an original one. It was written after Bristol, so it was written for Oxford.
Oh right, hence the fact
that was prepared before Bristol.
Because you did sing that at the cabaret, and I think that's such a lovely song. In fact, that and a song called Jonathan Loves Me is, and I was saying this before we started the recording, were both in that cabaret and were so immediately strikingly good. But I really regretted that I couldn't see the show in Edinburgh, which is why I am going to come and see the show in London. More of which later. So you wrote a new writer's song.
So I wrote a new writer's song, but within the context of, you talked about chorus on the original CD being down and out and sitting, sort of, and I think John does it with a Brummie accent. This time, it's within that framework of that trio. So I was doing it so that it would fit in with that trio, but it's a freer sort of tune.
I've got to ask, how easy is it to pick up a pen and write a new song for a 20-year-old show, or in those days a 16, 17-year-old show, a show that you've stopped thinking about in a creative sense, and then find that creative mindset? Or is it helpful? Because Sondheim now does this. He quite often puts a new song in a revival of an old show.
Yeah, you see, something's never finished, is it?
Well, do you know the story about Showboat? Jerome Kern carried on writing songs for Showboat till the day he died.
Did he really?
The late, great Benny Green once said that he'd been asked to pick which songs to put in a London production of Showboat years ago.
Yes.
And he had the whole score laid out in front of him, and he said it would run to 24 hours. It's
wow.
Just, well, I'm not sure that's absolutely true, of course, but that's a lot of music. But it's there's so many songs.
Yeah.
But I'm really interested in this idea of getting back into the mindset, or do you actually want to have a different mindset? So, would you like it to be seamless? Have you ever asked anyone, can you tell what the new song is?
I haven't actually. I haven't asked anybody. It's funny because I knew I had to write this song because I knew that the writer's scene as it stood was too long and wouldn't do. But it wasn't easy to see how I could do
what it now needed to be, in fact. Yeah.
And I think it's very instinctive, in fact, that I sat down at the piano, and what I ended up with was something that was much more like Jonathan Loves Me in terms of that kind of poppy thing than the musical thing. But when I sat at the piano and just fiddled around with the ideas that I had, which were writer-centred and about, losing inspiration and where the inspiration comes from, that's what came out.
You've just fascinated me there, because I wouldn't have called Jonathan Loves Me a poppy song. Now you've said it, I can see, well, I suppose possibly in the lyric sense you could argue that it's a love song, which of course is what so much pop is about, and it's a fairly catchy
it's
number.
very.
But I wouldn't have thought of it as a pop song.
Would you not? Well, I don't really write pop songs. That's the nearest I've ever come to a pop song, actually. I think of it as a pop song because the lyric is reasonably straightforward, and because the chord sequence is quite straightforward as well, actually, although it's overlaid with a lot of other stuff.
And yet, it's when I say lyrical, I suppose it feels like a lyrical song, which I don't find pop very often is, if you pardon me saying so.
Yeah.
I find, once again, I think it's the sentiment, actually. It's a difference between like and love as well. So many pop songs are a little bit churned out, a little bit love this, love that, love the other. When in fact, actually, you can quite often be so much more suggestive with the right use of language. So, I think she likes me. There's a song called Lily of Laguna, I think it is, and it finishes, she likes me, I know she likes me because she said so.
Yeah.
When the Americans,
go back to musical.
Well, I'm afraid I am, actually. Yeah, but when the Americans sing it, Bing Crosby did a version of it, but he changed it to Love Me. And immediately cheapened the piece. Yeah. Because it's not it is a love song, but it's
much more bashful.
Yeah, it's bashful, which I think once again ties absolutely into the British approach to emotion.
Yeah.
Rather than being brashly shouting "I love you" from the rooftops, it's actually catching a glance and thinking a lot of that. So So I think that song is lyrical in that sense. I think the emotion that it portrays is actually a gentle, tender root. Or shoot, perhaps.
Yes.
Rather than a full old chrysanthemum straight up the kisser.
Yeah.
If I may put it that way.
Delicately put.
So you trimmed the show, you tweaked its focus just a little bit.
Yes.
It's still got a great deal about innocence, which we were talking about earlier. I mean, I'm still fascinated by this the whole idea of regretting one's innocent youth.
Yes.
Because it prevents you from being the better person you need to be.
Yes, I mean, in the original show, which we had to cut for this one, we speculated on the prince falling off.
He dies young, doesn't he, in real life? The real prince before he's...
Well, they never say, you see.
Oh, right.
Actually, I mean, we only join the prince at the moment when he's on the pedestal. So in fact,
300 years later, isn't it?
So we did a whole sort of pre-Prince bit where he was, having a great time in the castle and then fell off because he was trying to see what was going on beyond,
so enthusiasm,
which was like a theatrical improvisation in the old sense of the show. But we cut all that from this one, and it's much more foursquare. The idea that, however he's got there, he's raised up on a pedestal for all to see. And now he can see who's looking at him. And actually that's really uncomfortable because the life that he recognises is a completely alien one to most of the people who are living in the town.
There's so much. I mean, there's a lot of intelligent adult stuff going on here as well. I mean, you can read these things at lots of different levels, which is why it sounds I find just the description of it very enigmatic, I find.
I think it's very topical in a way,
yes.
Because I think that notion also, which Wilde touches on, of whether when they get the gold, the people are made happy. I mean, he says, the children laughed and played in the street, but there's a sense that it's not necessarily going to change their lives in the way they hope.
It might alleviate a symptom, but it may not change a life.
Exactly. Yes. It's like losing 20 pounds. You're not suddenly going to become, that gorgeous creature that everybody's going to fawn over. I mean, it's a strange thing, money.
I'm prepared to put it to the test if you want to give me £20. Yes, I mean you're right. So even then, there's a slightly untied, which is what life is.
Yes.
I mean, it's not pat. Once again, I think that's what's good about it. Once again, and that's dreadful, isn't it? But I'm being unpleasant about the Disney thing, but I don't mean it unpleasantly because Disney have done so much good, and I enjoy their films and I enjoy their scores. But you will get your loose ends tied up in a Disney film unless they're going for a straight to DVD sequel. But they never do that. They never cheat themselves doing that. Whereas actually, real life starts loose and ends loose. You've just rearranged the pieces a bit.
Yeah.
So it's come to London in its new revised form.
It has.
Having been to Edinburgh.
And
it got some rather lovely reviews.
We did. Yes, got some lovely reviews.
And you have also received some very personal lovely reviews as well. That about the lyrics being witty and someone's even said you could give Andrew Lloyd Webber a run for his money, if I may say.
Isn't that nice?
Isn't that nice, Lady Casson? But tell us. So, how did it finally rematerialise? Did you say let's take this to Edinburgh? Because I noticed it's actually in conjunction with Sea Theatre, which is a new venture, really, isn't it?
Well, I mean, we were at Sea in the summer. And that was another sort of weird 20-year tie-in, in that we had thought that it would be nice to take the show to Edinburgh because we'd never taken it to Edinburgh. And actually, I think there's a school of two sorts of people. There are people who love to go to Edinburgh and go back year after year after year, and there are people who go a few times and think, I just cannot stand this. It's just heartbreaking. Nobody comes, and So, but I've always, having not been back since. Well, probably Requiem was the last time I went as a performer in 1996. So I was ready to go back and see what it was like. And of course, it was lovely to take the children and for them to be part of it.
It was there first.
So Tom was looking around for a venue to put it in, and Hartley Kemp, who was our lighting man, fresh out of Oxford, when we did the Prince the first time round, now runs Sea Venues.
Oh, does he?
So when we spoke to Hartley, he said, "Oh, well, bring it here. That would be lovely."
It's an expanding empire as well. Sea Venues, as I may say, they pretty much own most of Edinburgh now.
It's enormous, and it was great because he obviously had very warm feelings about the show and being part of the show, and came on board as a co-producer. Which was an association that we thought was worth preserving, beyond Edinburgh. So that's why we're still there.
I mean, also, Sea is a very good choice anyway, because it's actually... There was a dedicated musical theatre venue a few years ago, but it's stopped.
Yes.
Unfortunately. So Sea is, if you like, almost... is one of the 2 or 3 really big musical theatre venues. I mean, they do lots of other things as well. But
it's almost like a load of different sort of festivals on its own now, Edinburgh, because, I mean, you could almost take Sea Venues, never go anywhere else, and have a festival on your own. I mean, there's hundreds of shows going on there. And, of course, there are still the other venues that do that. I mean, there's the Assembly in its new form that does that. And so it's quite a lotto whether anybody ever turns out to see your show at all, actually.
Oh, well, that's the downside, isn't it? You can't guarantee an audience, but you never could anywhere. So.
No, you couldn't.
But there's the buzz and the excitement, and indeed you do get a large number of people, myself included, who go up to Edinburgh in order to see more shows in the course of a week than you're ever going to see in the rest of the year.
Yeah, sure.
I got about 50, 60 shows in.
It's expensive now, though, isn't it?
It jolly well is, yes. Although still, compared to, if I did 60 or 70 shows in London, I'd now be living under the arches.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas,
that's true.
You can still...
But I mean, I think the average price of a ticket is nearer £10 than £5.
It is now, yeah.
And that's one thing if you're going alone. But if you were taking anybody with you,
family of 4 is 40 quid. It's
huge,
absolutely,
isn't it? Really.
And some of them now are going higher than that as well.
Yeah.
The comics, not that I go and see the comics, but the comics are all charging twice that. So,
yeah.
Which is a great pity, I think, because I think they may ultimately damage the wider festival by making it too expensive.
People have already said that, haven't they?
Oh, well, I agree with them.
Yeah.
But if you didn't get to see it in Edinburgh, and I didn't, there is a chance to see it in London.
There certainly is.
Now, you've gone back to the Bridewell. Now, unfortunately, the Bridewell is no longer a production house, it's just a theatre for venue, theatre for hire.
Yes.
So you were there at its beginning, and now you're there beyond its ending, if you like.
Yes.
But what's that like, going back to... Because it's still a Victorian swimming pool, isn't it?
It is. It's still a Victorian swimming pool, and this time we're doing a lunchbox production, so we're not taking over the theatre in the same way. I mean, we very much have to work around the show that's going to be there in the evening. But we are a very sparse show anyway. I mean, we set up in 5 minutes in Edinburgh, so actually that's not going to be a problem.
You could double the time and have the luxury of a 10-minute break.
Exactly. Go wild.
But has it felt like a homecoming?
Yes. I mean, it's got a nicer bar downstairs than it used to have.
Oh, it's better all round, yeah.
It is.
Someone decided to put new tiles up in the lavatories. It's marvellous.
Oh, good Lord. No expense there. No, I mean, but it's still very much the place it was in terms of
atmosphere,
coziness and atmosphere, and it's a very unusual space with that wonderful balustrade that runs around the top,
which is the old viewing gallery of the old swimming pool.
Exactly, yeah.
And you can get some very interesting audio effects from that. I went to see a musical earlier in the year called In Touch by Dougal Irvin, and it was a youth theatre production, and there was a large number of people in the cast, but because some of them were singing their chorus numbers from under the walkway, which is at the back of the stage.
Yes.
Gave it a kind of echoiness, which actually made it strangely ethereal.
Yes,
really
I can see that. I can see that. When we did the Prince there the last time, we did use the balustrade quite a lot, actually. And I hope possibly we may be able to this time as well, because it does give you different sort of,
feel and ambience and opportunity.
Exactly, yeah, different levels to work from.
Now, you've mentioned it's a lunchtime performance, so
yes.
That's handy to nip in and see a show without, over your lunchtime, without necessarily...
Absolutely. So I mean, if you're in the area, I mean, it's you could grab a sandwich and almost eat it while the show was on.
Oh, absolutely. And there are cafes nearby. It's Blackfriars, essentially. It's near Fleet Street. So.
It is. It's tucked away right at the end of Fleet Street, Ludgate Hill end.
I always go to Blackfriars Tube, and it's a 5-minute walk. And that's
so. Yeah.
When is it on?
It's on from the...
and as though it was here.
It's here from the 27th of November, which is a Tuesday, until the 21st of December, which is Friday, and it runs Tuesday to Friday each week at 1 o'clock.
And that's, as you say, it's every weekday from not Mondays, but Tuesday to Fridays over
Tuesday to Friday.
And that's the build-up to Christmas. So
yes.
It's a good family show in its truest sense.
I mean, it is, but I think, unfortunately, we're going to miss out on the families because they'll mostly be at school.
Yes.
So, although it's a family show in the sense that it's a story that you could tell to your family, rather as Oscar Wilde wrote it, not for his family but for a group of undergraduates.
That's right.
It
wasn't written for children, was it?
It wasn't written for children.
So when I say family, I mean there's something for adults and something for children.
Definitely.
I use it as a differential to children's show.
Yeah, it's not a children's show actually.
No, I think we've established that very clearly.
And I think children would have to be a certain age to, sort of catch on.
But what happens after this? Does it go back in the cupboard and we look forward to its 40th? Or are there other opportunities?
We were invited when we were at Edinburgh to do a couple more festivals, one in Dublin and one in Brighton. But we are now on borrowed time because my son is 12, nearly 13.
Is there going to be a voice issue?
I think there may be a voice issue. I mean, he has a lovely voice.
He does, yeah.
He's working with it very well, but I don't want it to become a trauma if, one day he wakes up and he's suddenly a baritone. Yeah, exactly. So I think, though this was never the plan, this may be the end of the road for it for the moment.
For the moment.
And, who knows?
People can hear some of the songs, if they can't get a copy of the CD, you can actually hear some of the songs on your website.
You can, right? Yeah, you can.
And could you give us that again?
It's www.englishcabaret.co.uk.
And that is cabaret, the proper spelling?
Cabaret, yes, Cabaret.
And I know that if you go to one of the pages, you can hear my favourite song from the piece, which is the fabulous song. What's it called? It's the one where...
Tricks of the Trade.
Tricks of the Trade. Thank you very much indeed.
Which on this recording that I've just given you is a bit of a cheat because my daughter is also a fabulous flute player. So we wrote a flute intermezzo to go around it. So, of course, she said, I'm so brilliant on this recording because I'm singing and playing the flute at the same time. So,
and that's a trick.
And that is a trick, but not one we can repeat live, unfortunately.
Not successfully. And are you happy for us to play a song or two?
Absolutely.
If you are happy to. I probably will include that one then. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah.
Because it's an absolute treat. Can people buy the recordings from you electronically? Or?
I'm hoping to get that together. We have a shop facility on the website, but we haven't yet triggered it and managed to make things available as downloads. There is a possibility that we may do a CD just as the one I've given you, actually. We've had 3 sessions in the recording studio, which has not recorded the whole show, but has recorded a good number of tracks. And for the website, I also recorded the story.
Yes, it's you narrating the original
exactly.
Lost the Wild,
yes.
Yeah.
So that's also on your CD.
Thank you.
Because, in another life, I do voiceovers as well. So...
well, you're a professional actress, amongst other things.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
There are many strings to your particular bow, if I may say.
Yes. Perhaps too many.
Oh, don't. No. We'll have another one of these, please. Another Happy Prince, please. And so people can go to the website, they can hear some of the songs, and they may be in a position to buy electronic versions
or at the theatre. We're working on that.
Fabulous.
I'm hoping that we can work on that. I mean, we have got a box of the old CD. The difficulty is once you've moved on from something, whether people would be interested in having something that sounds so totally unlike what they've just heard.
But it still gives you a very good sense, if I may say, of Sue Casson, the composer and lyricist.
If that's what you're interested in.
My view is that everyone should be interested. I certainly hope that they will be. Honestly, and I mean this as a compliment, the very reason I'm here having this genuinely enjoyable conversation with you, thank you, is because I heard those songs once at midnight, and they had stuck with me ever since.
Well, it's wonderful, actually, because when you perform at those kind of impromptu, spontaneous get-togethers, you just never know who is there. And
it could be anyone, couldn't
you
it?
could be anyone, and you kind of get up and you're sort of fighting over where the microphone's going to be set, and it's all a bit sort of by the seat of your pants. So I'm delighted that you came away thinking that it was worthwhile having been.
Not more delighted than I am, if I may say. I'm so grateful to you. Sue, thank you so much for talking to me. It's been really, really interesting, as I knew it would be, by the way.
Really? I think I've been a bit dreary, actually.
Not at all. And I do hope that once the artist formerly known as the Happy Prince has finished for this time round, if you find yourself with anything else, whether it be cabaret or musical, please do keep in touch.
Yes.
I know I and many of our listeners would be delighted to hear the further adventures of Sue Casson.
I do hope so. Thank you very much.
Musical Talk.
Time passes quickly. Each today soon transforms into yesterday. Weeks grow to seasons. Seasons repeat with the passing of years.
To be a prince, fulfill your destiny. No room for doubt, each move mapped out, not shrinking uncertainty.
If I could fly just like a bird, if I could fly just like a bird, across the sky, soaring high, I could dive or glide or hover, floating free. What a brilliant life an airborne life would be.
Commanding poise, a true-born man.
Well, that was Sue Casson in conversation, and you've already heard 3 of the songs from that revamped version of her adaptation of The Happy Prince. The music alone is worth the price of admission, but the show itself is a wonderful show, and just to reiterate how you can see it, it's on at the Bridewell Theatre, And if you want to find the website for that, www.stbridefoundation.org. And it runs Tuesday to Fridays from the 27th to the 30th of November. So it opens on the day that this episode is broadcast. And you can also see it between the 4th and the 7th, between the 11th and the 14th, and between the 18th and the 21st of December. Tickets are an amazingly cheap £7 for a 50-minute show. It's perfect for popping in at lunchtime because all performances are at 1 o'clock. Do try and get along to see that. And we're going to finish today with, well, if you've been listening to the interview, you'll know that this is my favourite song. This is the one that really hooked me into finding out about the Happy Prince, and I hope you've enjoyed this journey of discovery with me. The song is called The Tricks of the Trade, and it tells you a thing or two about theatre and musical theatre and how to write a song. So, farewell for now, and speak to you soon. Goodbye.
I want to learn all the tricks of the trade you can teach me. I want to see all the skills of illusion laid bare. Oh, who conjure up a scene with my magic powers, you mean? Any wisdom you have to spare?
All my secrets, my art, my wit.
That's just the start of it. Take me from A through the gamut to B, the whole business. You'll be surprised at my unperseverance and get up and go. I get what I want, and I want to learn all the tricks of the trade that you know. Proffer a tip or a prop to equip me for learning.
Learning's not just about me telling
Show
you.
me the knack, and I'll go and practice alone.
You have to think and ask too. Take character the call.
In acting, less is more,
The way they're recognised on stage.
dictated by the costume store.
Together with stance and voice. Add the right colour, scarf and hat.
Show me how you did that.
Staging's the art of
Turning what's there to your purpose.
knowing the touch that will bring the whole setting alive. Add lights,
Paint
art,
and everything set for the narrative spirit to thrive. I want to learn all the tricks of the trade.
so you told me. Haven't you heard that Rome wasn't built in a day?
Show me again and again till I mastered a magic.
Use your grey matter to show how it's done.
Couldn't you give me a clue just to signpost the way?
Cudgel your brains till you've won. Patience, more practice,
And sooner or later I'll know that I'll lick it.
undaunted, determined, and certain to stick at it. Somehow or someday you'll learn all the tricks of the trade.
This episode of Musical Talk, edited and presented by Thos Ribbits. Copyright Musical Talk 2012, except for the music which was played with permission, where the copyright remains with Sue Casson. And my thanks go to her for her time and her generosity. Thank you, Sue.
It was wonderful how... thought someone had been shot.